Toastmasters. I hang out with eighth graders. I read you're going to have to indulge me, I really am going to read this. I read a memoir recently, and the author made the statement that it is very difficult to get a friend, much less a stranger, to care about the good things in your life. Intuitively, as a teacher, that statement makes a lot of sense to me, but tonight I sense how truly blessed our family is, and I am grateful to everyone who came to help us celebrate our parents' anniversary. I am a teacher, as many of you know, and I spend a lot of time trying to get 13 and 14-year-old kids to care about things that they have absolutely no interest in. I made a comment to one of my students a few weeks ago that was a touch harsh, but I felt it was appropriate because of his behavior. One of his classmates, a 14-year-old girl, later told me that my comment had really hurt the boy's feelings. And she went on to tell me that I should be more concerned about the boy's self-esteem and that perhaps I should try being a little more empathic towards him. I laughed. And then I bet her she could define the word empathy. She took the bet, and she said empathy is when you walk around in someone else's shoes. So of course I told her she was wrong. And you can find a dictionary to back up her definition, but that only makes your dictionary wrong too. I explained to her that a century ago, society in general was less concerned with how people felt, but much more concerned with what people did. And back then, empathy was defined differently than it is today. It was a term used to describe a sense of experiencing someone else's world. I told this girl that a lot of teachers try to be empathic using her definition because they think they can make kids feel good about themselves, and somehow that will solve all of their problems. I can be sympathetic towards this boy and his problems at home that doubtless contribute to his problems at school, but I can never truly be empathic towards him because I've never lived in that world. And I have my parents to thank for that. My student, the girl, asked if there were any students at all who I could be empathic towards, and without hesitating, I said absolutely. If you can find someone who used to grunt earthworms with his mom so they could go fishing. I suspect a lot of kids today will never know the world I grew up in. And while that makes me sad for them, at the same time I recognize how grateful I should be for that world and for my parents who created it for me. So here's that world. It was a safe place. It was a happy place. It was full of love. It's hard. In our world, there were Bibles, parents who read them to us, taught us to read them for ourselves, and who took us to church. In our world, Dad came home at lunch to play catch with his sons, and sometimes he would bring us baseball cards. In our world, Mom drove a station wagon that could carry our entire baseball team. Sometimes she did. They had a CB antenna tall enough to hold a power line strapped to the rear bumper. In our world, there were a lot of guns. A dad and uncles who taught us to hunt, a mom and grandmother who would cook what we shot, and when we tired of the guns, there were plenty of bullfrogs to tie haystacks and plenty of arrows in our quivers. In our world, there were bass boats, rods and reels, devil's horses, blue shad culprits, yellow sunner lures, Mr. Acreage, black jellyworms. If the fish weren't biting, the poker was always good. In our world, there was a Mustang and a grandfather who gave it to us. In our world, the only dancing we did was celebrating a home run or winning a big game. In our world, we played outside, barefoot, and often. And our friends were there because there was enough love, strength, comfort, support, and hope to go around. In our world, baseball was so powerful that it broke all of our hearts. But in our world, baseball was so powerful that in my life, there has never been a problem so big that playing catch with my dad couldn't make it better. In our world, when we were still kids, our parents began to pray for our future spouses. And personally, I think they did a great job for me. Lisa and I know Ben and Selena and Dwin and Kelly will agree. In the world we live in today, a world that is remarkably different than the one we grew up in, a world that is not nearly so kind or predictable, take great comfort in knowing that there is no place we can go and no problem we will face that God is not there caring for us, with the prayers of our parents persistently asking His blessing and protection for us. Dwayne, Ben, and myself have been guilty at times of giving our parents a hard time about how strict they were in our youth. Sorry, Mom, I can't resist now. Can't be all sad. I remember the day Ben was born, and aside from his actual birth, I remember there were two really great things about that day. The first, I can't say because it would be inappropriate, but I think at least Dwayne knows what I'm referring to. If not, we'll talk. He knows. The second is Dwayne and I both got to watch The Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman. Because our parents were at the hospital, birth and bed, and we were at Steve's house. I tell my students I come from a place with one stoplight, 40 churches, and 60 lakes. And while the lakes go dry, they add a stoplight, and there's only one church that truly feels like home. I know where my home is. I know what home is, and I know exactly who is responsible for creating such a magical place. I think it is less important for us to try and convince others to care about the good things in our lives than it is for us to recognize and honor those who sacrifice and labor and love with every fiber of their being to make those good things possible. I truly wish I knew better words that could convey how grateful I am for the world you created for me. I love you. Thank you. Happy anniversary.